Welcome to the first episode of the St. Peter High School Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Adrik Maldonado, and join me is
CeeJay King.
And we are here with Mr. Deering, one of the directors of our 2022 performance. So, Mr. Deering, what made you choose She Kills Monsters as the spring play?
So I'm one of two of the decision makers for which play we do in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So Miss Maldonado is the other one. And we actually have, this is kind of a really big question, but we have kind of a running list every year. So at any given point, we have about 5 or 6 shows that we're interested in doing. And then we just, depending on where it fits in the season, depending on what kind of students and clients we have, we kind of hone that down to figure out which one's the best pick. So She Kills Monsters we've actually known about for about 2 years now. So we've had this kind of on our radar for about 2 years. Not knowing when specifically, but then, it kind of bubbled up to the surface.
So like the stars aligned and She Kills Monsters was sort of chosen?
Yeah, that was the answer, yeah. We decided that it had the kind of the cast breakdown that we're looking for. We always look for larger cast shows. Like we could do, some shows have like 4 people in it, which is not appropriate for a school setting because we want as many people in the show. We wanted to look at themes that were relevant to our students and our school community, and we wanted to do something that would be fun and engaging for the kids to be part of.
I'm glad you spoke about themes because our next question was specifically about the themes, CeeJay.
How will you handle the complex themes and scenes presented in the show?
It's actually really interesting. Complex things. One thing that I think working with especially high schoolers is they can handle more than the adults think sometimes. And what I say is that going into it, some of the scenes on paper might seem like it's a little aggressive. It deals with bullying, it deals with death, it deals with loss. But high schoolers deal with all of those themes. And it's not happy, like we're not celebrating that, but it's a reality that teenagers and high schoolers deal with grief, and they deal with loss, and they deal with bullying, and they deal with identity formation, and they deal with really everything. So it's not something that is outlandish. Some shows can be outlandish, but this show is perfectly tailored, I think, to kind of be really on the line of, having these complex themes and making it so that they're not so complicated that or too inappropriate for high schoolers to deal with. So we really believe that, yeah.
And since you're the stage director and just director in general,
co-director with
Maldonado,
yeah,
and then the musical with Bergstrom.
Mm-hmm.
What does your job entail as being one of the co-directors?
So our job essentially is kind of make everything. So one thing, we select the show every year. We figure out, we kind of do a little dramaturgy, which is that process of reading a show and kind of doing like a book report on it, which doesn't sound super interesting, but it's analyzing themes, analyzing characters. We create the set. We communicate with like the technical director, who is Mr. Robinson this year for the spring play, and communicate our ideas, what we want to see. We have to figure out all of the costuming, all of the props, all of the blocking of the show. So what characters are doing. We have to work with students to create their characters. What is going to happen very soon is starting putting lighting together, putting sound together. And then all the other stuff like ordering t-shirts, making a poster, selling tickets, all of that fun stuff.
And we have another question.
Is there any big struggles that come up with directing a play or a musical?
Oh yes, so much. So high schoolers are fun to work with, obviously. If I didn't think that, my job would be really sad. But they're also kind of difficult. And I say this in a loving way, especially as we're getting closer to Tech Week. But we have about 20 humans on stage who all have this, that, and the other, right? And it's hard to, we want to honor that, but we also want to hold people to standards. And that's one of the difficulties, is just there are so many people involved, and there's so many moving parts with the production that it is kind of crazy. It's like jar of shaken bees sometimes in my head.
And how long have you been involved in the St. Peter High School theater program?
I have been involved since I started teaching here in fall 2016.
And has there been any notable performances? Like, which one of our actual performances that you directed has been your favorite so far?
That's a really hard question. So, that's like which kid is your favorite? That's kind of this was the sandbag question. A few things that a few notable things that I'm really proud of. So I'll give you like the non-answer, right? So, my very first year here, we did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at the called the old high school, but the current middle school when that was the middle and high school. That was the first musical in a couple of years, and we sold out completely. And that theater does not fit too many people, but it was like packed. It was very warm, very packed, kind of steamy. But that was amazing. I was very proud of that. That was the first time that a lot of really awesome things came together. Sold out also the first show at the new high school, Footloose. That was awesome because the school and the community built us a giant, brand new, beautiful theater, as both of you have been in. And we were kind of scared because like, oh my gosh, we have to use this. Like we have to like do it, because otherwise we can't build a multi-million-dollar theater and be like, yeah, we just have had kind of like a little, hokey show, whatever. But we also sold out Footloose standing room only. It was insane. Artistically, I really thought that choreographing West Side Story was one of the most, I enjoyed that artistically the most. I was the most fulfilled in that show. I think during COVID, doing War of the Worlds Panic broadcast was a very awesome move on our part. I was really proud of the cast and how that came together. I was COVID responsive.
And you said that you're the choreographer for the musical and for the battle scenes in She Kills Monsters. So, are there any problems with actually choreographing a bunch of high school students who may not have, good dancing ability?
No, not really problems, but it's kind of funny. It's one of those kind of like we do a little Simon Says almost with some moves because it's not all of them have dance training. Some people do. There's some awesome kind of dance programs in town and around that people are part of. But one thing, the biggest way to be successful in dance is just to kind of do it, which sounds super easy, but like just do your best, say yes to it, try it out, and keep throwing yourself in that area of discomfort because that's how it happens. Dance is just moving your body anyway, so we all move our bodies all day. And people think, though, because it's dance or it's like specific, that they can't do it or that it's without, it's beyond their reach. But I think really everyone can dance.
And, working with you with choreography and stuff, I can say that you are an excellent choreographer. You really make
Thank you.
You really make the musicals actually look good, and Bergstrom also helps make it sound good. But,
there's a lot of, all the adults are incredibly talented. They work on our shows. Yeah.
And speaking of discomfort, CeeJay, you should audition for the musical next year.
Yeah, CeeJay, surprise! This was supposed to be my interview, but you're supposed to be on stage.
The tables have turned.
Yeah.
I want you to be equally involved in the podcast and not just me asking questions.
Sounds good. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think Crew is doing so far?
I think Crew's doing amazing. We have we finally put the set on stage yesterday, and it is huge. It is big. It is awesome, and the skeleton is there, and people have been working really hard on that. We have a lot of awesome crew people that have been imagining this and designing this and thinking about this. And that definitely shows. They're super dedicated. Mr. Robinson has brought in some people, also some students that, didn't realize that that's what Crew does. It's like, hey, they just build. When in theater people think that they have to sing and dance and do all that stuff, but actually there's so many jobs in theater that are not singing and dancing, and there's so many skills and there's so many it's such a collaborative thing between so many moving parts that a lot of people, a lot of students can really shine in that space, I think. So Crew's doing amazing, and they're only going to continue to do amazing because that's what they love to do.
What is your favorite part of the spring play so far? Any scenes in particular that you are excited to show when the show is actually opening?
One of my favorite parts of the recurring funny thing that is funny every single time that I think is just going to continue to make me laugh is Brendan's role as Steve the Mage. I think that's really funny. Like every time he comes on stage, he trains you to laugh, and it's small, but I think those small moments have a tendency to maybe have a large impact for the viewer.
And is there any role that you think is just your favorite? We have your opinion on it, Steve, but is there any other role that you just really like?
One role that I think the one role that I also really like is it's actually kind of a toss-up between Vera and Miles, because everyone else is going through all of this stuff. Like they're all doing it, and I think Vera and Miles they're kind of like in a play you'd call them like the straight man. Like they're the ones who are like based in reality. They're the ones who are rational, and they're kind of like, wait, they keep asking what's going on, I think Vera is a really fun, moody, sassy character, and I think Miles is also really funny, has kind of like that stereotypical jock, but is also emotional during the show, and I think that's a really fun, the dynamic between those two and how they interact, especially with Agnes, is also a very interesting thing for me.
And we were talking about this with Hannah yesterday, but is there like any monsters or any designs for the monsters that you think is just going to stand out?
Yeah, I think the Beholder is going to be funny, or the gelatinous cube. I think people are going to look at it and be like, "What am I looking at?" They know that it's a gelatinous cube, but when it kind of starts acting, I think will be really fun and enjoyable. And the Beholder, I think, is really funny. It's on stage. Again, it's on stage for like 10 seconds, but again, small things can make a big impact.
And we also talked about, with Hannah, the gelatinous cube. She said that she doesn't know what's actually going to happen. Is there like, do you have any more like concrete ideas of how the gelatinous cube is going to work?
Miss Hendrickson has been building it, but she's been doing it at home. So it's going to be here. Yeah, it's PVC pipe. I'm gonna reveal all of her secrets. Secrets revealed. St. Peter Theater secrets revealed. How it's made. It's PVC pipe with a fabric, like an iridescent shimmery green fabric. So it's gonna have shine to it. It's gonna have movability, kind of like a gelatinous cube, and it's gonna have like a fold in it, so it can both eat Steve and then spit out or turn into Miles, or to Miles the boyfriend. Shay's gonna just have to kind of like crawl out of it, and then it's gonna recede, so it like turns into him.
And do you have like any like questions or any concerns about how like changing sets is going to work during opening night?
Oh yeah, always. I mean, everyone's like, who knows what's gonna happen? It's actually like during a show, I'm powerless. Like I can't do anything. I'm sitting up, in the booth, or I'm sitting, in the back of the house. The kids are doing it all, which is awesome, but there's always that doubt of, did I do enough? Did I remember to say this? Can they do it? And they always can. They always figure it out. Kids are, they take such ownership in this, and they are so independent and good at what they do that even if there is a mistake, they just roll with it. We're led by Hannah Wohlers on the headset. Can't go wrong there. And then all of the backstage crew, all of the cast, everyone is just there to complete a single task, do one thing, have one show, and make it happen. And so I believe that they are fully capable of doing that.
Is there any like previous moments with like stage crew that just was like a oops moment that you weren't too happy with, but like fine with?
An oops moment I wasn't too happy with. I think one thing that makes me laugh really, this makes me smile, and she already was interviewed, so she can't slander me after hearing this. In the show Clue, this is like one of my favorite oops moments, is we had a set piece that lowered and raised, and it was supposed to reveal a dead body, which was the maid, Katie Engeldinger, and it raised, and she was there because she was set, but it raised way too soon. So she kind of like looked around and then she just fainted because she was supposed to be she was never supposed to be awake. So she was supposed to be like a limp body, but she was clearly standing there. And then she just like died, and it was very funny. And you know what? We rolled with it.
Yeah, Hannah told me about and told us about a different moment that happened on Stage Crew. Was when there was like a box that was supposed to have all the evidence in it, but there was like a black glove that wasn't actually put on there.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that moment? Did they like tell you?
It's so funny because this is the thing with theater. Audience is seeing it for the first time, right? And I like if one person comes to our show knowing what She Kills Monsters is, that would be huge. So we've been working on the show. So I've been reading it. I've known the whole script for like over a year and a half, right? And so when someone messes up, when someone is like, that black glove wasn't in the box, like that is such a small detail that guess what? People have no idea. Like people don't know. Like people don't have that intimate relationship within it. So when someone, an actor comes off stage and like, oh, I missed one line. It's like I unless it was a big one, unless it was like a big plot point, no one probably noticed. Just because the show and the crew, they're so intimate with it, they know it so well that every little hiccup like that is massive.
Speaking of the audience knowing about the show She Kills Monsters, we'd like to give a description of the show.
Yes, I'm kind of working on this. I don't. It's hard not to get into. It's like hard to find the balance of detail, explanation,
And spoilers.
Yeah, without spoiling it too much. So it opens on a show. It's about a girl named Agnes Evans. She is a high school student. She had previously lost her sister in a tragic car accident. Her sister she didn't really know because she was like the cool older sister, and then Tilly is her like nerdy younger sister. Classic high school relationship. She's like, get out of my room, slam door. So when she dies, she's obviously really heartbroken over this. She finds a Dungeons and Dragons module. It's set in 1995, which not many students know too much about what was going on in 95. And Dungeons and Dragons, she finds a module, which is kind of like a game. It goes through, scenarios, goes through quests, all that stuff. And her sister wrote it, and then she goes to, the games where she's like, I want to play this. And through learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons and going through this module, she learns about her sister. She meets her sister in the game. She's unable to talk or communicate with her sister when she's not playing. So it kind of becomes an obsession of hers to keep playing Dungeons and Dragons because that's the only way she sees her like dead sister. And through that, she processes, her own grief and loss, while also dealing with, her current problems, her interpersonal relationships, finding out the baggage that her sister was carrying, and then, moving through that and killing monsters, both literally and metaphorically.
And the way on how you describe the show made it seem like it's a really sad and somber story, but how would you describe the humor?
But it's like show? Not.
Yeah.
It is, but it's not. Dark comedy. Dark comedy. There are moments when, Agnes is like, my sister is dead. But then there's moments when we're all dancing to, like, Gonna Make You Sweat as a dance battle as we're fighting demon cheerleaders. Like, how isn't that funny? So there's a lot of referential humor. There's a lot of absurdist humor where it kind of, like, takes you out of the moment and then brings you back in, but it's within theme. Such as like Cheese Whiz, like David Orcus, played by David Marlowe, is a demon who like is obsessed. He's like watching Friends, like they're like creeping into his lair, but he's like watching Friends. Like that's so silly. That's so like absurd that he's doing that because they're supposed to have a serious mission, but like he's eating Cheese Whiz and watching Friends, and he's like, wait, I'm kind of busy right now.
Yeah, and I remember like during one of the read-throughs of the actual performance, you said that a lot of the humor in the show is stuff that your parents will laugh at. How do you think like the younger audience that might see the show are going to feel about the referential humor that you were talking about?
If a joke is done well, I think not that this is the only thing, but I think a good joke lands people and leads people to laugh even if they don't fully know why they're laughing. And I think if we pull it off, I think kids will know. You know, there are moments that are just funny anyway without full context, and as long as you are paying attention, as long as they're like engaged in it, I think they'll get it. They'll get it. But then the parents laughing will be like, ha ha ha, that was funny, and also ha ha ha, you don't know what that is. Like you don't know what Twin Peaks is, you know.
And CeeJay, are we good on time?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that this is the end of our interview. The next person that we'll have up here is Jennifer Maldonado, the other director of this performance. And thank you for listening to this one part.
Wait, are you pausing it? Stop, hold up.
Oh, we're not.
Adrik and CeeJay, what's your best part of it? What's your favorite part?
Oh, okay.
So far, CeeJay, you've seen the show for one day. Adrik, and then yeah.
I mean, for like the parts I'm in, I'm excited for the actual fights.
Yeah.
Fight choreography. I think like compared from the very beginning, where we were just hitting each other with swords, flipping Lucas on his back.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really come a long way, and I'm excited to have the audience see what it's like, what the stage fighting is going to look like.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
I would say the stage fighting because that's the only thing I've really seen out of the whole
That's
show.
what you've been doing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and will CeeJay be required today?
Yeah, you should probably show up. Can you show up?
Yeah.
You should show up.
I just gotta leave a little bit early.
That's fine.
But yeah, we are done with the interview, and we'll talk to Jennifer Maldonado next. We are here with Jennifer Maldonado, the other co-host of the St. Peter High School Theater program. We already asked some questions to Mr. Deering, so we're probably going to repeat some of them to get your opinion on it.
Sure.
Okay, and how do you feel about the performance right now, like in its current state?
I think it's really exciting. I love the show, and like all shows, I think that you have kind of a learning curve or a curve of the process. So I think first people, just as they put things together, you have varying degrees of what the show looks like. So I think the show is in a great spot, and we just keep moving forward and putting the pieces together.
Any struggles that come with directing a play?
I mean, there's always a struggle with anything you do, and that is part of the fun. I think working through those things as a group is what brings you closer as a community of thespians, as a community of people in theater. I think, yeah, sometimes I would say the biggest struggle is the scheduling, because kids are so busy, and we have such well-rounded kids in our show, so they want to be doing a lot of different things. And so figuring out a way to balance everybody's schedules has been, I think, something that we have always tried to be flexible on, but also like honor the people who are committed and can come all the time. So that's always like a hard balance, I think.
And you're in charge of like costumes, correct?
Yes. Yep. So Deering and I have like different things that we take charge of. And then things we work together on. And so he's definitely lights, sound, more tech. And then we kind of share the blocking, although he does definitely, like, if it's movement heavy, like the choreo scenes and stuff like that. The fighting scenes, sorry, the anything choreo fighty, he does those. And then I will do kind of the pedestrian blocking, like any other scenes that don't have some intense movement in them. And then, yes, I will do the costuming, focusing on the makeup, which the show's been really costume heavy, and I'm loving it. It's so fun. The costuming's been really fun for this show.
Are there any costumes you think are going to stand out?
I really like how the costumes look together. So I think I think my favorite duo, or trio, I should say, right now, in terms of what it looks like visually at this very moment, would be the Lilith, Calliope, Tilly sort of cohesion. So Lilith is very like all black, spiky leather, kind of the 90s goth feel. And then Calliope is going to be like more nature white elf. So she's got like feathers and sticks and leather. And then kind of Tilly in the middle is that like kind of quintessential warrior. So she's got like leather armor, and her, 90s, I call them just buns, but everyone's like, no, you're old. What are you saying? What is it? But I think just the visual of the three of them together, I love, and that is coming together really nicely. So that right now is fun, but I think we'll continue moving on and getting everyone smoothed out. There are a few things still being worked out.
Like the monster and gelatinous cube?
Gelatinous cube is almost done. It's being sewn by Miss Hendrickson, so she took that on. She did the entire thing at her house with PVC and stretchy fabric. We met at the fabric store over the weekend, and so that actually is done, with the exception of a few seams. It was too big, so she didn't realize like it didn't fit through the cave opening. So she took the gelatinous cube and like tried to walk through it and like thunk, ran into the sides of the wall. Then she had to bring it back home, cut it down. So it's a long story long, but the gelatinous cube is almost there. Monsters, I think, will be really fun too. You're right. The bugbears have presented a bit of an issue. I can't lie.
What issue did they present?
Just so when we would like look up what is a bugbear or read about, okay, here's what a D&D bugbear looks like. Generally, they are like super hairy, and so how to find like a full fur suit without spending, like $200 per costume on it is something that we've been like, okay, let's just buy the Wraith costumes first. And then we've been kind of avoiding a little bit. So now we're going to need to focus on what to do about the bugbears.
How long have you been involved in the St. Peter High School theater program?
Wow. I got involved in the St. Peter High School theater program when the school was new. So how long is that? 6 years?
I think so, like around 2017, 2016.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think it's been 6 years.
Any previous performance that just you think is your favorite?
I have enjoyed the process of all shows. Of course, that's my like blanket answer, but I think I am most proud of a few things. Number one, I'm really proud of what Mr. Deering and I did during the pandemic, because that was really hard to figure out what to do. And I think the two of us had a really good time collaborating, and we worked really hard to do something for the kids because that was such a crazy time. So I feel really proud of that work, and I love collaborating with Mr. Deering. And then I also feel really proud of Clue. I loved that show. I just loved the script. I loved the costuming. I loved the movement. I love kind of the humor, the funny, creative things. And I feel like I felt about Clue about this show. So I feel like this is a similar type of show. It has similar movement, similar elements. And this one, I think, even has maybe more of a powerful message. Clue didn't necessarily have a message, except for fun.
We talked Deering and Hannah about this, but they also both agree that Clue was like their favorite performance to actually choreograph and actually be a part of.
Any like hints that you'd be willing to drop about what next year's performance might be?
Within reason, we didn't.
Are you talking about the musical?
Performance, musical, anything really.
You guys are gonna love it.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
it. And that's all.
Deering told us that we shouldn't ask any hot seat questions that really just put you on the spot. Oh no, did I accidentally close out? No. Okay. It is 8:18. Do you mind?
You're fine. You're fine.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
How do you think we're going to handle the complex themes presented in the show? We asked this question to Deering, and he said that we're handling it like pretty tastefully, that it's not just going to be presenting a bunch of sadness, and we're actually going to be splicing in some humor elements to sort of lighten the load. How do you think we're handling complex themes?
I actually that's what I think will make this show in the end my very favorite show. It's because I think this is a really important, these are important themes and messages to share, and I think that's what theater is all about. So I'm really extra excited about that. And I do think it's complex and difficult and complicated, and then some of it just isn't. It's just what's right or wrong. So I think I agree. I love the humorous elements. I love when things are like serious or you're like some even now when I watch the show there are moments where I'm like this is going to make me cry, and then the next second I like, you know, Steve comes in and I just start cracking up. So I think that I love that juxtaposition of the two things together. And I also think that sometimes when issues are hard, that's the best time to like bring them to the forefront and have a discussion about them, especially, you know, when you work with high school kids. I wish that this wasn't true, but obviously right when the show was starting, we were having these conversations as a community. So it ended up, unfortunately, being very timely. This isn't an issue that stays in the 90s. It's here right now. And so that's unfortunate, but I think it's also very important to comment or to process or to, to think about those issues with people who find them important and need to think about them, and just as a community, you know.
It is 8:21.
Okay, so
yeah.
now I have to go.
Okay, yep.
But thank you guys so much. This was fun.
No problem. And just to clear up any confusion with our podcast episode format, we actually interviewed Hannah first, and then Deering, and then now Maldonado. So the way we're actually going to be putting it in the episode is that Deering comes first, Hannah's last, and then you're second.
Okay.
So, because, we recorded it out of order, so there's going to be times where when we're talking to Deering, we mention stuff that Hannah said when Hannah's not actually on the podcast.
Okay.
But
So tell me, like, where does the podcast go? Like.
Oh, we're putting it on our YouTube channel, which we don't have made. Like,
do you guys do this for class? Or
we're doing it for Mr. Clark's media production class.
Cool. Awesome. Mm-hmm. That is really cool.
But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And we're back. And I messed up immediately. Okay.
Keeping it.
Yeah, we're doing good. This is totally not our first interviewee. But yeah.
Interviewee?
I believe that's the correct term.
Yeah. We're
really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we are here with Hannah Wohlers, the assistant director of the SPHS theater program. Hannah, is there anything else you'd like to say about yourself?
I don't know, not really. I guess I'm just, assistant director / stage manager. Assistant director makes me sound, pretentious and like very, very in charge. Stage managing is kind of just, I get about 3 days that I can do stuff and be in charge of everybody, and that's about it.
Assistant director is a powerful position. I think you have the right to lord over everyone. And anyway, how long have you been involved in the St. Peter High School theater program?
So I have been involved since my freshman year. I started assistant stage managing backstage behind West Side Story. During that time, I was assisting under Ethan Niemeyer, and then I had...
May he rest in peace.
And I had another assistant stage manager. So basically, I was just a mini stage manager backstage, making sure all the shift crew knew what they were doing.
So an assistant stage manager?
Assisting. And then I had to take over right before COVID started, not really knowing what I was doing. Because after that, I wasn't able to train under Ethan because of COVID, and it canceled everything. So I just kind of had to hop in and just go on my feet.
And CeeJay?
What has been your favorite show you've managed?
I'd have to say Mamma Mia. That was just fantastic. We kind of had some weird shows during, I think, 2021, because we did War of the Worlds, which was a radio broadcast, which we had to record, and that was something. Mm-hmm. We did Theory of Relativity, which was really good, but still wasn't a production that we were allowed to really get into much because of masks and all that stuff. Aside from stage managing, my favorite one I did, assistant stage manage, was Clue. That's probably my favorite that I got to work on just backstage. That one was just a blast.
And now you're the assistant stage manager / assistant director / stage manager of our 2022 spring play, She Kills Monsters. Is there any scene in the show that you think is going, I would say, like, amazingly well so far? or any scene that just stands out as being like one of our best?
So scene 5 is really a long scene. It starts out kind of just with the leads a little bit, and then it really just ends in this whole montage thing with there's the one song playing. I blank it now.
Mama Said Not
Mama,
Yet.
yes.
Yeah, by LL Cool J.
I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah. CeeJay over here has not even seen or even set foot in this theater so far this entire production because man's over here is on lights.
Man's been busy.
Give it 2 hours, I'll be there.
Yeah, 2 hours will be his first time
Not
actually
even an
setting foot and even watching the entire show. No, actually, not even watching. What are you going to be doing?
I know what are we gonna be doing?
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah, I've just been told it's looking for
Um,
lights.
Well, currently
And
we're still working
what
on
to do.
sound. Deering wants you to map out lights, which is going to be, I'm sure, just going to go through scenes, and I'm going to have to tell you where everybody is. That'll take a while, so that's probably going to be a later this week thing. I'm going to let you get reacquainted with a light board.
Yeah, I hardly touched that with Mamma Mia.
And is there anything so far that you think needs improvement involving what we have so far?
Well, there's a lot that we can improve on, and there's little that we have little time because we have about 2.5 weeks until opening night. And
Speaking of opening night, would you like to say when that day is?
so opening night is May 5th. It is a Thursday. I believe the show is at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. I'm not certain, but
Yeah,
that will be opening night. Y'all should go.
I'm
It's gonna be awesome.
totally not having you say this because I forgot when opening night was and I need to get that day off from work. May 6th, correct?
May 5th.
May 5th. Okay.
Thursday. So May 5th, May 6th, and May 7th we have shows.
Okay. Yep. I need to ask for those days off work.
I'll do this later.
Yeah.
I'll do this later.
Yep. Do you know when tickets are going to be going on sale for people to buy it?
I don't. I believe they're still figuring out prices as well. Normally, I think for the spring play, we normally have a free student admission, but depending on how things go with construction, because we always need funds for that, how things are looking for like the adult interests and just kind of that thing, that usually gets figured out about a week before. So I would say start looking probably the end of April.
And we've mainly been talking about like your assistant directing and stage managing experience, but we haven't actually talked about what actually that job entails. So what does it mean, or what do you do when you're the assistant director / stage manager?
Well, if you ask Wesley Twopence or anybody else in tech, I don't do anything. I just sit there and flip pages.
Okay. What is your job supposed to be then?
Well, that's what it looks like while the show is going. Really, what it entails is I have to basically be almost the backup director in case things go wrong. So while the chances are that there will always be a director there, and that's like always going to be the case, I still have to know the show inside and out. I have to know when people go on stage. I have to know where things are moving, where they're entering. I have to know sound cues. I have to know light cues, and just where spotlights are, and basically just know the entire show front to back and be able to really execute it flawlessly and like in real time. So it can be stressful.
Yeah, and what are the other parts that come with like the whole tech thing? Since you're our first interview, we'd like to get people, acquainted with what goes on backstage. So what other parts of tech are there?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different positions in tech. You can be on stage, where there's usually someone, if we have shows that require backdrops and all that stuff. You can do rigging, which is like lowering or raising them as needed. Otherwise, more of what I did backstage before I started stage managing was kind of directing people that are doing shift crews. So like during the shows, we have those little blackouts in between scenes that you need to move set pieces on. And that needs to be done by people on shift crew, and then they also need someone to really manage what they're doing. Up in the booth, we have me. This year there will be Wes, who is kind of going to be taking over for me next year. He'll be just kind of studying, watching me, trying to just really get it all down. And then we also have CeeJay. What CeeJay does, he's the light guy. So
I press button.
Would you like to explain what light is, CeeJay?
I press button. I program light to make people look beautiful.
And I'm sure you try your best.
Yes, I do.
He does well.
Yeah.
I think
Good
I do
boy.
good.
Good boy.
So we have that. We also have Corbin, who is another lights guy. And then we have sound, which they normally will adjust mic levels and do different sound effects if needed, that type of thing. And then the other spot that gets overlooked are the spotlights. So they really don't have, contrary to the other tech jobs, which is more like work before the show and then kind of just really not lax, but a lot more like decompressed during the show. Spotlights, their main job during the show is to just light all the individual people as needed during scenes if they need to be, focused on or that kind of thing. So they usually just show up during tech week and dress rehearsals and just figure that out on the fly, and then, they're there for the 3 nights and that's it.
And what has been the hardest part of actually, managing the show so far?
So far, I think there's so many little different things in this show. She Kills Monsters on cover looks like a pretty easy show to manage, but there's just so many different possibilities and different ways you can go with the show. And it would be super easy to just let it go as it is, let the actors take care of everything. But when you add different sound effects in, you add the music in, you add all this other stuff, it really does make the experience a lot better. So it's really just trying to amp up the interesting aspects to what they can be versus what they are just on paper.
Okay, and it looks like we have been here for around
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Never mind. We're going to continue going. I thought we've been here for like 20.
No.
CeeJay, is there any questions you would like to ask?
How do you think crew is doing so far with
As
the
in
construction sets?
crew. They are making great headway. Mr. Robinson is a fantastic guy to be back there leading everything. And there goes our camera.
Bye, camera.
Oh, great. CeeJay, you want to get that working or
The
something?
battery's dead.
Oh, wait, what? Okay. I thought that was charged. So it looks like the last half of this interview will not have a camera on.
We'll have a magical display.
Yeah. Do we have like a sort of technical difficulties thing that we can do?
I'll make one.
Okay, good. Anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine. It wasn't your fault.
Mhm.
So construction crew, within a few days, they had almost an entire mountain built, and that's not an exaggeration. One of our set pieces is a kind of mountain castle type thing, and that's over, I'd say, 7 feet high. I can walk under it. There's a little, entryway underneath it. Mm-hmm. And they had steps up it. They had all that within, I'd say, 2-3 days. So they're just fantastic.
And what about the actual costume design? I was told by, Deering and Maldonado that we were getting some costumes, and we already have some that was in it. How do you think it all looks?
So the only costumes I have seen so far are the ones for Chuck. I believe the 2 cheerleaders, Grace and Eleanor. And then we also have been kind of messing around with a few of the other ones, but a lot of them are on order. I believe we're getting them in today. But one of the nice things about the show is that all the costumes can either be really 90s pedestrian-like. So Chuck, who's played by Brian, just has like a Smashing Pumpkins t-shirt and like a flannel, and that's like his costume, and it totally fits the show. Or you have David's character, Orcus, who is like this evil demon who needs...
evil in quotations. He's sort of...
Yeah.
He's there. He's like... Him and Brenton are like really the comic reliefs of the show. They make...
Oh, yeah.
I think they really elevate the show from being just a sort of like coming of age, really getting to know your family, into like something that's truly special.
Yeah. They do, like, they poke fun at a bunch of rom-coms and different sitcoms, and they basically turn the show into a sitcom, and it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the play's called She Kills Monsters, so what about the monsters? Anything special going on there? Like, I know that Miles, played by Shay, is going to become a gelatinous cube. I've only ever been told, like, some basic ideas of how that's going to work. Is there anything else, I know, any more about how that's going to work that you can talk about?
I don't think I'm allowed to disclose at this moment. That might be an opening night secret that will have to be revealed. Mainly just me saying I have absolutely no clue because that's something we actually haven't covered yet. The directors have been kind of keeping that to themselves, which is actually kind of funny.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin the surprise before opening night.
Yeah.
Because if people are actually going to be listening to the podcast, we don't want to give away everything. Just note that we have Orcus, Chuck, and Steve.
See, I'm gonna be as surprised as them when I see this stuff because I know nothing that's going on.
Yeah, like how's that going to work? How are you going to actually be able to see the performance? Because I remember during Mamma Mia, you said you never actually got to see the show.
I can see the show. I can't hear the show.
Oh, yeah, you don't need audio.
No, I don't. I just need Hannah to tell me when to hit button.
Go.
Yeah.
Lights go.
Is that really all Lights is? Just hit button and go?
Well, so the thing with Lights during the show, yes, and you also have to be able to fix things in an emergency. I remember during
ballet play.
Yeah, ballet. Also, Beauty and the Beast, we had a technical difficulty that previous Light kiddos, Jack and Hayden,
turn on all the lights.
I think that I don't. He didn't do that. I think there was just a cue that had gotten messed up during fixing lights the night before, and it just somehow didn't get fixed right.
And I assume that issue has been fixed now.
So the thing about lights is you have to record them beforehand, and so if you record them differently than you think you do, you have no idea what cue you're going to. So you hit go, and then it might change something entirely different than what you're expecting, which we did kind of run into with Mamma Mia, but it wasn't to the extent that it was super noticeable for the audience. It was just not as concretely well done as we had planned it to be.
Was there any like technical difficulties in any shows previous that you'd like to talk about?
The only thing that really comes to mind, so far we've had a fantastic just tech team that has been able to work on all these shows. And the only thing that comes to mind is during Beauty and the Beast. If you watch the show, there was the rose that was sitting up in the case in the castle. And that was a really tricky thing because we had a little, like a button that we had to push that would drop a petal. And it had to be connected to the case from up in the booth. And for whatever reason, it was not signaling to the rose that it had to drop the pedal. And so we got to the point where there were supposed to be different times that a pedal dropped, and it just didn't drop. And then I think they all dropped like at once at the very end of the show. But that's really the only thing that it was such a minuscule thing that, I mean, if you were looking, you would have seen it.
Yeah, I doubt that the average audience member would actually notice that something like that happened, which is actually, one of the great things about theater, that things can go wrong, and as long as you act like they didn't happen, no one will ever actually notice it.
Right.
Anything you'd like to say, CeeJay?
I had a question, and it left my head.
Well, remember.
Oh, that's too bad.
Oh, I'll try, Adrik. Thank you.
Yeah, remember. And what about Shift Crew? Like, you talked a little bit about them. I assume that moving things on and off stage is something where a lot of errors could happen. How do you manage to, like, avoid potential difficulties that come with moving all the props on and off stage?
So the big thing with Shift Crew is making sure you have enough people, enough know-how, and people who know the show. Even if you're on Shift Crew, you do have to know when certain lines are being said, because a lot of those are cues for right before a scene is going to end. So even though you are just moving things on in between scenes, and it doesn't seem like you have to know when a scene is about to end because the lights are going to go down, you have to be able to prep. So really, it's just a lot of organization. When I was backstage, I would make sheets with different items that had to be moved on and off for each scene. And you kind of just, like, put someone in charge of a certain item. Say, person 1 and person 2 are going to move the table on. Person 3 is going to bring the chair on. And just little things like that. And then also making sure that little props, we normally have a prop table, so just making sure that those are put back in their spot so they're not lost or, just not able to be found.
And as someone who's messed around with the prop table a lot, I was always told that there's basically the golden rule: don't touch props that aren't yours.
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been a moment where like a prop would have broke or a prop broke before like an actual performance and you had to get like a new one?
No, not anything like that. The only prop scare we've had, and Brian Haroon can attest to this because he was actually the one that had to do all the work for it. During Clue, I was stage managing on stage left, and there was, at the end of the play, there's a scene where there's a box under the couch that Mr. Green has to pull out with all the evidence in it to find all the other players guilty. And I was on the intercoms, and my other assistant stage manager asks, "Hey, do you need a pair of black gloves?" And I said, "No, they're supposed to be in the evidence box." And she goes, "Well, I have them over here." And I immediately started freaking out because the scene's already going. And if they're not in the box, then there's no evidence to frame. I believe it was Professor Plum. So Brian had to run out in the middle of a tiny blackout during the scene because there was a part where they would do a heavy spotlight on one of the characters as they were accused with the rest of the stage dark. So he had to run out behind the couch during one of those little light-ups and then wait for the scene to kind of keep playing out until the next person was accused, and he would run back off. And there were only a tiny few people who noticed that were in the front, and I got asked about it later just because it was some friends of mine. But otherwise, people in the back couldn't see, and it was just, while it was really stressful, it's really funny to laugh about now. Because
And we have been going on for around 20 minutes, so I think this would be a perfect end to the interview. Just make sure to see She Kills Monsters again, May 6th, May 5th? May 5th on opening night. Tickets will be available when ready, and thank you for listening to our podcast.
Thank you, guys.